Hello, I'm Sharon Tong. You're watching In Parliament. The Parliament debate today centred on the spending plans of the Ministry of Education. Education Minister Heng Swee Keat outlined his ministry's ultimate goal in education, and that is to provide every child with the opportunity to get a good start in life, to discover their strengths and to realise their potential. At the same time, Mr. Heng says every child must also come to care for each other to forge a community united by a common national identity. This, he says, is the human element in the story of a stronger Singapore and an inclusive society. The minister said to achieve this goal, his ministry will focus on holistic education with values and character at the centre. Secondly, it will create opportunities for all by ensuring that every school is a good school. And finally, by ensuring as many as possible go on to post-secondary education. First, with holistic education, besides developing the values and character for children to do well in life, the Education Ministry aims to also give children a strong foundation for the future in an ever-changing world.
A primary 1 student entering school this year will likely enter the workforce by around 2030 into a world that will be vastly different from today. To be future ready, education must develop the whole person. It is less about content knowledge, as contents will have to be relearned and even unlearned during one's lifetime. It is more about how to process information, discern truth from untruth, connect seemingly disparate dots, and create knowledge even as the context changes. It is about developing an enduring core of competencies, values, and character to anchor our young and ensure that they have the resilience to succeed.
These values, Mr. Heng said, are not taught in a single lesson. He said it must instead be infused across everything that's done in school. The minister said the community involvement program is an important part of character building as it builds a spirit of volunteerism. It will therefore be enhanced and reframed as values in action to place a stronger emphasis across all schools on the inculcation of values through community involvement. Under values in action, students will undertake personal and group reflections to discuss their experience and the role they can play in the community. Students will be encouraged to choose community issues they are concerned about, understand them better and decide how they can make a difference. Schools will also be encouraged to develop 4-year or 6-year development plans to move towards more sustainable learning through community involvement.
St. Gabriel Secondary School has a 4-year plan guided by themes for each level, starting with Love the School in Secondary 1, extending to Love the Environments in Secondary 2, and Love the Community in Secondary 3, culminating in the focus on the elderly in Sec 4 and 5. From learning to take care of specific areas within the school, they progress to service learning projects in the community thereafter. Students do reflections in their journals and are given feedback by teachers on their development in terms of life skills. Now, I hope that this introduction of values in actions will, over time, allow students to see themselves as part of a larger community and for the community to adopt the school as one of their own.
Besides instilling the right values, Mr. Heng says there is also a need to make sure every child has the opportunity to realise his or her potential. This is in line with the government's policy of inclusive growth. To that end, Mr. Heng says good schools are key and the ministry aims to make every school a good school. He addressed many MPs' questions about Primary 1 registration and how parents were concerned about getting their child into a good school, as well as concerns over the labelling of neighbourhood schools versus branded schools.
I think this neighbourhood school labelling has, in some way or another, this connotation has affected and influenced some of the behaviours of some of our young working adults and some of the younger students. And as such, I was actually quite heartened to know that ministers feel that all schools in Singapore are good schools. And there is a need, if possible, to slowly phase out this labelling of neighbourhood schools. I wanted to ask the ministry, are there any plans? How do we manage this issue?
We might need to have a very significant mindset shift, not just of the school, the ministry and the children involved, but also of the parents and the community at large, to reinforce the message that a quality education is much more than just academic development.
Now, I agree with Mr. Teo Ser Lat, who said that we should not be apologetic about neighbourhood schools. The truth is, Our schools are geographically sited in our neighborhood, so naturally they draw students who are living in the neighborhood. So we have to ensure good schools in every neighborhood and not use the term neighborhood school as if, as an apology. So we must collectively change perceptions and change mindsets, as Mr. Edwin Tong mentioned. A sustainable solution must lie in ensuring that every school is a good school and that parents perceive it as such. As I've tried to show, many significant improvements are being made across our schools. So while we continue to consider feedback, our schools will make a concerted effort to reach out to parents on the programs they have and engage parents in developing our students holistically. So for now, let us concentrate on ensuring that every school a good school.
And one of the important roles of a good school, says the minister, is that it should level up students who need additional support. The Education Ministry is significantly increasing its coverage of financial support for needy students. The income ceiling for its financial assistance scheme will be raised to $2,500, up from the current $1,500. A new per capita income criterion will also be used in parallel, so students from households with a per capita income of $625 and below will qualify. This is to benefit students from larger families.
For example, a family of 6 comprising 2 children, 2 parents and 2 grandparents living together with a monthly income of $3,600 will now qualify. These changes will benefit about 40,000 more students, double the number today.
And in line with the ministry's emphasis on a values-driven education, the EduSave scheme will now recognize character development as well and not just academic achievement. A new character award will be introduced and some 10,000 students are expected to receive it every year. The EduSave Award for Achievement, Good Leadership and Service, or EAGLES, will also be doubled and its value increased. The income ceiling for the EduSave Merit Bursary will also be increased to $5,000, up from the current $4,000. The Education Minister said these awards will recognize students who demonstrate exemplary values like resilience and tenacity.
Desmond To from Ho Chong Institute, despite being of modest means and having to be hospitalized a few times last year, overcame that to be one of the top students this year. Yang Xin Yi of Tampines Junior College showed resilience in the face of her father's stroke. It spurred her on to do well and did well enough to pursue a life science degree at NUS. Each of this is a heartwarming story of tenacity, grit, and resilience. We must continue to encourage and support our students and their parents.
Aside from financial support, the government also provides academic support through its learning support programs. These provide targeted assistance for students weak in literacy and numeracy. This assistance will also be extended to the preschool level.
Now, schools are creatively using these opportunities to enrich learning, and it has been heartening speaking to many students who are inspired to excel after these exposures. Our ongoing research shows that this has worked well and will allow us to continue to improve the way we support students with weaker foundations and to train our teachers and allied educators for these programs.
And as part of providing support to students, schools also provide student care centres, which provide additional supervision and guidance to students after school. The government has plans to increase the number of school-based centres from the current 57 to 70 over the next 2 years. The quality of these centres will also be improved with better coordination between schools and centres to align support for students from low-income families.
Taken together, the whole support package to low-income families, low and middle-income families, can be quite substantial and will relieve some burden. But let me emphasize that it is not just about money, but an integrated approach addressing financial, social, emotional, and learning support in partnership with parents and the broader community.
Now, the Education Ministry also believes that ensuring as many as possible pursue post-secondary education is another way of achieving its goal of giving every child an opportunity to realize his potential. It will be investing $350 million to provide more opportunities for continuing education and training over the next 5 years. Singaporeans can look forward to greater choice in course offerings in the various pathways offered, from the more academic pathway of junior colleges and then to the universities, to the more practice-based route of polytechnics or the Institute of Technical Education. For the university sector, Minister of State Lawrence Wong says the Education Ministry is looking to provide more opportunities for university education. The Committee on University Education Pathways Beyond 2015 has recommended expanding the sector. This to cater to a wider spectrum of students as the economy needs more Singaporeans with high skill levels. The expansion of the sector will also meet the strong aspirations of young Singaporeans wanting a university degree. Mr. Wong says the committee believes there is scope to develop a new university model that marries teaching with industry practice. There could also be a bigger role for private education providers. This is aimed at opening up new routes to obtaining a degree while ensuring they remain affordable.
No Singaporean student admitted to our universities should be deterred from pursuing a degree education due to financial difficulties. Today, the government subsidizes a large proportion of university education through grants and supplements this with a full range of financial assistance schemes, including loans and bursaries. MOE regularly reviews and enhances these schemes and will continue to do so to ensure that they meet the needs of students, especially those from lower-income families. For example, we recently enhanced the bursary scheme by broadening its coverage to 2/3 of all families based on household income and increased the quantum provided.
And moving from the end of a student's educational life cycle to the beginning, preschool education. As part of holistic education, the Education Ministry believes that the formative years before primary education are critical. Besides raising the quality of preschool education, there are also measures in place to ensure that no child, especially those from low-income families, is deprived of a preschool education. ComCare and kindergarten financial assistance currently provide for those who can't afford it. But from April, a new per capita household income criterion will also be introduced for these subsidies to provide support for larger families.
Higher education and preschool education may lie at the opposite ends of a student's educational life cycle, but they both aim to achieve the same thing: to equip the students with valuable skills to maximize their potential and thrive in a changing world. MOE will continue to invest heavily in both sectors to develop better preschools and to build stronger tertiary institutions at the ITE, polytechnic and university levels. In so doing, we aim to create even more education opportunities for young Singaporeans to pursue their dreams and fulfill their promise.
The educational requirements of special needs children are also not forgotten. The quality of special education, or SPED, is being raised, so those interested to pursue the sector could see more opportunities. Senior Parliamentary Secretary for Education, Sim Ann, said the ministry is exploring the possibility of working with overseas partners to offer a SPED undergraduate degree program. The curriculum development in SPED schools will also be strengthened. A draft curriculum framework launched last November, which specifies a set of education outcomes and learning standards that SPED students should attain after 12 years of education, will be developed further. The ministry is also looking at ways to retain talent in the sector so that expertise and knowledge can be continually built up.
MOE will support NCSS and our VWOs in reviewing salaries in SPED schools so that schools can continue to attract and retain talented and committed teachers, allied health professionals, and other staff members. Additional funding will be available for SPED schools to effect salary increases this year.
And besides improving the quality of special education schools, Ms. Sim next turned to improving the accessibility into such schools. She said capacity in SPED schools will be expanded where places are short in supply, while the enrollment process will also be streamlined to cut waiting times for admission. A multi-agency advisory panel will be set up to develop a standard application process for all 20 SPED schools. Ms. Sim Ann said this will help facilitate admission for children with less straightforward learning profiles into the appropriate SPED school.
With the standard application process, parents would not have to make multiple applications to different SPED schools. Only one will be required, and we aim to implement this fully by October 2012.
And not forgetting making it affordable as well. From this month, the household income ceiling of the SPED Financial Assistance Scheme has been raised to $2,500 from $1,500. Larger families with a per capita income of $625 or less will also be eligible. The changes will benefit about 1,500 SPED students, up from 600 previously. And more will also be done to better integrate special needs children with society. To better prepare SPED students for future employment, there will be a greater emphasis on vocational pathways that lead to nationally recognized certification. Students can also gain work experience through a program by MOE and the Singapore National Employers Federation. The Education Ministry will also expand the network of satellite partnerships to foster interaction between special needs students and those in the mainstream schools.
For example, students from McPherson Primary School and hearing-impaired students from Canossian School learn alongside one another in academic and non-academic activities. Students from both schools have been enriched by this experience. Shakil, a Primary 6 student from McPherson Primary, speaks fondly of his friendship with Wei Xian and Brandon from Canossian School. Wei Xian and Brandon have also benefited. They have more opportunities to practice their communication skills with mainstream peers.
And for those with mild special needs who are in mainstream schools, particularly those with dyslexia, a new school-based dyslexia remediation program will be piloted in 20 primary schools. Costing some $3.6 million, the initiative will target primary 3 pupils identified through a systematic screening process by the end of primary 2. If successful, it could be expanded in phases to other schools.
Our objective is to help these students read at the same level as their peers by the end of primary 4. While these children have difficulties learning literacy skills, there is a good chance that they can overcome their difficulties with appropriate intervention.
In the provision of holistic education, the Education Ministry has highlighted the importance of parent support. All schools will get $2,500 each as seed funding for parent support groups. The fund can be used for efforts to engage parents through outreach programs and parent-child bonding events.
The value of education is best measured in the values and belief system which each child forms throughout his educational journey. And it is the close partnership between parents and schools which shapes the educational journey of our children. Together with schools, parents help to instill in our children the important values of life.
To wrap up the idea of a holistic education for children, there's also a need to look at helping them cultivate the attitude to adopt a healthy lifestyle. Intra-school games will have to be organized annually by all schools from 2014. The Education Ministry is also in the process of improving school sports facilities, costing the government $3 billion. This includes constructing indoor sports halls and turning grass fields into synthetic turf.
Sports offers an option to those who excel in it to make it their chosen pathway or even a career option. So, say for a few examples in Singapore, Singapore has not hitherto been well known as a sporting powerhouse in the international arena. Our relatively small size, however, should not itself be a disadvantage. We should aim to nurture good sporting talent from a young age and provide the best resources and facilities to nurture and develop that talent. Success on an international arena will bring great pride to Singapore and Singaporeans.
We want more than just for our students to run faster, jump higher, or become stronger. With the right programs in place, sports serve as an important vehicle to nurture values of teamwork, sportsmanship, friendship, and respect. These are values which will shape the character
of our children. Far from just a race for medals and trophies, participation in sports is an important avenue for character development and contribution back to the community.
Moving next to cuts from the Ministry of Community Development, Youth and Sports, Minister in charge of Muslim Affairs Yaacob Ibrahim says the existing Muiz Progress Fund will receive a $2 million top-up, boosting its total to $2.9 million. The fund was set up in 2010 for the educational needs of children in zakat-receiving households. Mr. Yaacob said the fund will also be used to provide job training grants for zakat recipients so that the adults can stay employed and the children can continue schooling. He also announced that zakat collection has been increasing over the years thanks to rising income across all income groups. A 3% growth was recorded last year with a total of $23.3 million collected. And Dr. Yaacob also said Mendaki expects about 7,000 applications under its revised tertiary tuition fee subsidy scheme. The scheme was reviewed last year and students now can apply based on per capita income rather than household income. This allows families with more children to qualify. He added that those who do not qualify for the scheme could consider taking up an interest-free loan under Mendaki's Supplementary Assistance Scheme. And on strengthening the family, Dr. Yaacob said latest figures show that Muslim marriages are showing stronger resilience. He said the number of Muslim divorces as well as minor marriages has gone down in the last 5 years. He said the Registry of Muslim Marriages and Sharia Court make a concerted effort to provide services from marriage preparation to divorce counselling.
So marriage can be challenging at times, but divorce should not be seen as a quick solution. Even as parties consider divorce, we do not give up. The Sharia Court pays much attention to saving marriages. On average, over the last 6 years, between 2005 and 2011, the Sharia Court's marriage counselling program has successfully persuaded 44% of the clients each year not to proceed with divorce.
Dr. Yaacob also gave an update on the progress of mosque building and upgrading. He said Phase 2 of the Mosque Upgrading Program, or MUP, will start this year, 2 years ahead of schedule. 5 mosques selected for Phase 1 of MUP will be upgraded by 2013. 3 new mosques will be built in Punggol, Jurong West and Woodlands by 2016. Dr. Yaacob also announced the creating of a new Muslim Endowment Fund, or Wakaf Fund, through consecrating and pooling together shares of Muslim estates. This will allow Muslims to pledge up to 1/3 of their estates for the fund. The public may also contribute directly to the fund. Now, earlier in the day, Minister of State for Transport Josephine Teo was asked a question on whether the integrity of the MRT rail tracks have been compromised. This in light of recent incidents where rail clips were dislodged from the tracks. Mrs. Teo said a single dislodged rail clip does not affect the safety of the rail operation significantly. Still, based on inputs from both SMRT and the Land Transport Authority, certain stretches of the MRT system along the north-south line will have their rail support or timber sleepers replaced. She added that rail tracks are inspected every night, including rail clips. Any clip that is broken off is replaced upon detection. Temporary safety nets have also been installed between Dover and Jurong East stations to minimize the dislodgement of rail clips.
LTA has asked the operator to send the broken rail components from the dislodgements to a laboratory to analyze how the damage may have occurred as an additional check. The operator will also be required to give LTA a full report on the incidents in due course.
Other than clips, there have been some feedback as well from areas where the tracks are curved, that some of the lining of the undercarriage of the tracks have also occasionally dislodged. Are these also under the purview of the SMRT or the operators, or is this under the LTA?
SMRT is required to conduct daily checks along the tracks, and the LTA independently also conducts checks of the viaducts and the tunnels every 2 monthly. And if the LTA in this independent checks discover that there are other dislodgements or defects, they will inform the SMRT, the operator, to replace it immediately.
Parliament will wrap up its debate on the government's spending plans for the year tomorrow. Good night.